Hey everyone, welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thank you so much for joining me here. Hope you're having a phenomenal day. Really appreciate you watching here, and of course hitting that like button if you get a chance. What I want to look at, of course, with Solana is really straightforward. This ascending trend line that we're still holding on to, albeit by the skin of our teeth. Solana is looking still quite strong. Now you got to recognize Bitcoin is in the face of danger here, down 2%. Breaking its tentative support at 66,000. There's a lot of reasons why Bitcoin could continue much lower, right? This emoji should explain it all for Bitcoin right now. Now, again, it's not all doom and gloom, of course, because as per usual, we shorted Bitcoin with some nice success there at about 20% in 2 days, just from what, 67,400 to 66 even, or pretty close to 66 even. So again, we're expecting this to be a solid support, but once more, it could change at any moment. It looks like it really wants to break down. So just note that no support level is perfect. And at this point, we got to give Bitcoin a chance to hold that level. If not, if you caught my analysis or didn't, 64,500 is that next key area. Okay. Anyways, it's all available on our Twitter, Telegram, and Discord. I'm prefacing the video for Solana with that, so you understand how Bitcoin is performing and how Solana is doing, how well Solana is doing, contrary to the rest of the market. Most coins are down, 3, 4, 5, 6%, and Solana's down barely by 0.5%. Not to say it can't change, but it's performing better than expected in this range. So what we want to do is kind of actually draw out a range and kind of see where we're at here. I usually like to draw my ranges for patterns in on the 4-hour time frame, and that kind of helps a lot. Okay, so again, based on daily candlestick closures. So again, at this point, what we want to look at is the back-end liquidation data and double check a few things, and we'll go ahead and start with that just to get a sentiment of what's going on the back end, like where are people heavy or short or long, whatever the case, right? It's all available here, which is nice. So if you're not familiar with liquidation, it's just a really good indication of where people are hedged essentially. And usually the people have stop losses and or liquidation events at specific levels just above or below key supports or resistances. So again, as you can kind of see, we're working ourselves into a channel here where 164 or lower, there's a lot of liquidation, and 171 or higher, there's a lot of liquidation. Okay, there's technically more to the upside than the downside, so that leads me to believe we could see a quick pump up to 170, 172. But I think the likelihood of that's getting lower as Bitcoin goes down, because if Solana starts to align itself with Bitcoin, it'll be a totally different story altogether. It hasn't done that. It's not doing that. As you can see here, we got this is so interesting. Take a quick look at this. I want to kind of draw a parallel here. The playout chart here so far today for Bitcoin, look at this guy. We're about 3.5 billion in short liquidation. However, you look at Solana, we're at like 6, 7, 800 million in liquidation delta longs. That basically just implies that Solana doesn't give a crap, and there's too many people taking longs at this point. And when I say too many people, I just mean that they're susceptible to getting swept here as well, just as much. So when that number stays too high for too long, the price usually turns around. Now you could argue the same thing with Bitcoin, but Bitcoin has a lot of confirming factors of the downside, where Solana is kind of breaking even for the moment, but still looking good. I'll explain more in a minute. 165 is essentially that local open interest area here. So we see the most amount of people long at 165 effectively. So that's a good sign too. So the overall sentiment here isn't bad. Just keep in mind, Bitcoin runs towards 65K, 64.5, right in that range. There's a really solid chance that Solana will, it'll at the very least dump and then instantly recover. Is usually one of those. And that's why we want to look at some key fib levels too, so we can understand what that looks like as well. So I'll touch on some dollar cost average targets here. So daily time frame, we're above all moving averages. We know this. Solana is truly bullish in most sense of the word. We're also over 50 on the RSI while we rejected closer to 70. We still haven't broken that threshold, so we still have more propensity to increase from here. Same thing with stochastic pulling back down for the second time. That does carry more weight than the first because you're basically retesting a resistance range, which we're seeing right now. But we could be forming a bullish rectangle, and I'll explain more about that here in a minute. But the money flow index is super high. That reaffirms sustainability. Okay, it basically just means that people right now feel like this coin is moderately overbought, but it's also reaffirming the fact that there's so much money flowing into this coin that it confirms that overboughtness, if that's such a word, is sustainable and manageable. Okay, because again, people are like RSI is really cool about kind of getting the sentiment of the coin. That's why there's resistances and supports within that. But at this point here, you can see a pretty obvious range. I mean, this is definitely a bullish rectangle. So cool stuff there. That's absolutely nice. Once again, I'll update our playout chart on our Twitter, Telegram, and Discord, but this is pretty simple, pretty bare bones here. We're above the 20-day SMA, or at least testing it right now. If we lose that, we got to be ready for the price action to potentially pull back, okay? Because again, unless Bitcoin starts to recover, we're going to see Solana continue to range, right? But the good thing about this is if you look at this chart and you look at Bitcoin's chart, that's a significantly beneficial pairing. When Bitcoin lost its support right here, Solana's like, nope, we're just going to go ahead and instantly recover, okay? So mostly good signs here. There's really no reason to consider shorting this coin, okay? That's a pretty easy way to understand it. Bumper sticker version for you there. Money flow index, RSI kind of tapering off. This is normal for situations like this when the price goes sideways. The great thing about this is that as the RSI comes down and the price goes sideways, we have more likelihood of further upside as a bullish type of divergence, if you will. Honestly, I get the terminology, I screw up the terminology a lot, but the best way to understand it is this is a bullish sign. It's very good, and it's absolutely a positive scenario there. When RSI goes down and the price goes sideways, you're more likely to see the price go up because the RSI will follow. If of course, volume is introduced, which we are still seeing a good maintenance of volume here. We're right there at 0 line on the TSI, which is standard. We can also see MACD is diverging, of course. That's par for the course at this point. Hourly time frame, Ichimoku Cloud. This is something that's concerning me a little bit because we're going to have a different conversation maybe sometime tomorrow if we cannot seem to stay above the cloud and or continue this ascending trend. The reason why ascending trends are so beneficial and powerful, same thing with descending trends too, is that they establish some behavior, right? And once you break that behavior, it tells you that, hey, I don't know if I can trust this anymore, right? So I'm not like screaming it to the high heavens right now that we're going to break bearish, the price is going to go straight down if we lose this area here. But you can see this local point of control at 166, 167. We can see the cloud itself is kind of hanging out below the price action. So if the price does one of these, then we're going to be a little concerned because it would break the trend that we're in, the rectangle trend, and it would continue potentially lower. You got to recognize there's a lot of times there's situations where there's like power of 3-2 where the price action will dip down just to trap late shorts, and then the price recovers instantly. I'm speculating we're going to see something like that based on how Bitcoin's performing and how well Solana is performing to that. So if we do see Bitcoin pull back, I would say buying the dip for Solana would make sense at this point, even if we were to lose some of these short-term trend lines. Again, I know it seems kind of contrary and weird, but the overall strength of this coin right now, you generally want to trade in the direction of how the coin is doing. And if the coin is doing really well compared to Bitcoin, that leads me to believe we're probably more likely to see a further upside and for this area here to get hit. So while I don't necessarily recommend taking a long right now or in the market in general at this point, based on the way Bitcoin's performing and Bitcoin dominance increasing, I would say that Solana is probably one of the safer bets at this point. Okay, so I know it seems conflicting. I'm not recommending you take a long or a short, but if you're going to consider anything, a short-term long with take profit targets of 170, 172 would make more sense than trying to short it. I know that much. But again, you're always better off when situations like this to wait for the price pullback to take a long that's a little bit more appropriate than it is to take a short. Okay, so that's kind of where we're at. I hope that I described that correctly. Here's the levels here to recognize too. 162.50, or just say round number 163. That would be a solid consideration for entry if the price wicks down, and Bitcoin, it doesn't basically lose its bottom. Okay, I don't know if we're going to necessarily see that, but if Bitcoin does pull back to that mid 65K range, then we could see that. Secondary to that, as per usual, 160. That's the previous resistance. Turn support, we can presume 160 will hold. Where I wanted to get into Solana, at least I've been wanting this for a few days ever since we've broken that threshold, is to consider along the 160 range. So I'm just going to go ahead and set an alert here. So if that comes to pass, I will consider along if the market is appropriate at that time. Again, don't set limit orders blindly. Like, don't just set a limit long, leverage 20x for Solana at 160. You don't do that. You can set a spot back limit order, but if you're doing limit orders for leverage, you better be watching it close. That's all there is to it. Okay, anyways, enough. I'm sorry. I'm going in circles. Appreciate you watching. Thanks again so much to everyone who was always liking the videos. For Bitcoin, I think we got almost 150 likes yesterday. That's awesome. Same thing here with Solana. We're starting to get a lot more on average. So please continue to do that. Deeply appreciate it. And thanks again to everyone. You know who you are. You're an awesome part of my life. We'll see you in the next one. Have a great rest of your day. Take care.